There are few things more frightening than realizing someone refuses to let go. Over the years, I've read countless stories of obsession and stalking, but somehow they never get easier to hear. In fact, each one seems more disturbing than the last. The stories you're about to hear are real accounts from people who found themselves trapped in situations that began innocently enough, but quickly became something far darker. If you enjoy these kinds of true horror stories, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss future uploads. And as always, feel free to leave a supportive message for the victims featured in tonight's episode. With that said, lock your doors, turn down the lights, and join me as we explore some truly unsettling encounters. Let's begin. Well, my story is the following. My name is Isabel. Everything started in 2018. Before that, I had been in a relationship with a man with whom I had a son. At the time, I was only 19 years old. I was still very young. Since I had separated from my son's father, I started working to support him. I'm originally from a small rural town in southern Texas, but I moved to work in an industrial city near San Antonio because there were many jobs in automotive factories there. When I started working there, and I don't mean to brag, but I suddenly had a lot of admirers, too many. I had always been lucky when it came to attracting men. Out of all those admirers, I decided to give one guy a chance. He was a little younger than me. He was 18 and I was 19. We'll call him Mason. All names mentioned here have been changed for safety reasons.
Anyway, I met Mason. He was from another town nearby, not too far away, but not the same city where we worked. A lot of people from different towns and rural areas worked there, so we all crossed paths often. The company had transportation for workers that picked us up every day and took us back home afterward. When I started my relationship with him, I didn't take it too seriously. I never imagined marrying him. I wasn't planning on marrying someone else so soon. However, at first, Mason slowly earned my trust and affection. I never truly loved him, but I did grow somewhat attached to him because he seemed very attentive. He even came all the way to my parents' house to speak seriously with them and ask permission for us to date. That impressed me because none of my previous boyfriends had done anything like that. Soon I started noticing that Mason became very obsessed with me. He already wanted us to make the relationship more serious. He kept insisting that we should get married soon, have more children, and things like that. He even introduced me to his parents. On one hand, it felt like he respected me, and what I liked most was that he accepted me along with my son. But after about 2 months, I began noticing how possessive and jealous he was. He didn't like me having friends or talking to other people.
One time I went to his house where he lived with his family. Everything seemed normal. They greeted me kindly, we ate together, and after a while my boyfriend invited me to see his room. Once we were there, he started kissing and touching me. I felt uncomfortable because his family was in the living room nearby, but he didn't care. Against my will, he pressured me into having sex with him. That first time with him was honestly awful. He even made me bleed. I hated it, and from that moment I began to realize the relationship wasn't going anywhere good. We stayed together for about 2 more months. I guess I tolerated it because we barely saw each other outside of work. We worked different shifts most of the time, except for 1 week when we happened to share the same schedule. Inside the factory, at least, he treated me well. Then Valentine's Day came. He invited me to go to the movies in his town after work, but that's not what happened. Instead, he took me to his house, and afterward to a motel. We had sex again, but it was unpleasant. Whenever we were intimate, he became aggressive. He would hurt me. He didn't even give me a nice gift for Valentine's Day. When we said goodbye that night, my phone had died. He let me his phone so I wouldn't be without communication. His town was 3 hours away from my rural hometown, so it was a very long trip. By the time I got home, it was already very late. I think my boyfriend accidentally made a mistake. He forgot to delete his conversations. because out of curiosity, I checked his phone and found messages between him and a girl I knew from work. Supposedly, she was his best friend, and according to everyone, she was lesbian. But in those messages, he was trying to flirt with her. He told her he liked her, that he was in love with her, and invited her out. That made me furious. I felt disappointed in him and saw it as the perfect excuse to end the relationship. I thought everything would stop there, but it didn't. My boyfriend refused to accept the breakup. He kept insisting on continuing the relationship, while I wanted nothing to do with him anymore. I begged him to leave me alone. He started harassing me at work. We had different shifts because he worked in another department, but he still wouldn't stop. Eventually, I quit my job just to avoid seeing him. But that still wasn't enough. He found out I had quit, and then he kidnapped me. I've told some people this story before, and some don't believe me, but I swear to you, in the 21st century, this man kidnapped me. And I say kidnapped because he forced me to live in his house against my will. I had just finished my final shift at the factory. We worked fixed 8-hour shifts, and that day I had worked from 3 p.m. until 11 p.m. It was my very last day there after quitting. When I got out, he had been watching me. I was walking toward the company transportation bus when he grabbed me and dragged me behind the factory. It was dark, and the factory sat beside a highway. He forced me into his vehicle and took me to his house without anyone seeing. He took my phone away so I couldn't contact my parents, and I spent the night there with him.
Since we come from a traditional rural background and my parents are older, they care deeply about what people would say. I'm also the youngest of 5 siblings. Because of all that, I felt pressured into becoming his woman and staying with him. My parents cared too much about gossip and appearances. I endured living with him for 4 months, and those months were hell. He lived with his parents and his brother in a cramped little suburban house. At least they accepted my son, too. Still, they were the worst months of my life. He controlled me constantly. He locked me inside the house, took away my phone so I couldn't talk to anyone, and never gave me money. Sometimes he worked, sometimes he didn't. His mother was a horrible woman. She insulted me, threatened me, and even hinted at hitting me. I eventually got a job as a cashier at a grocery store because he wouldn't support me financially. The job offered daycare for my son, but I only lasted about a month because Mason became jealous and forbade me from working. Meanwhile, 2 of his uncles started harassing me through social media. Both of them were married men and lived very close to us. Every day I felt less safe. I begged Mason to let me leave. I told him I didn't love him and was tired of living with him, but he wouldn't listen. The more I rejected him, the more obsessed he became. He insulted me, humiliated me, and once even spat in my face. Several times he hit me. His family witnessed everything and did nothing. When I finally found the courage to leave him, I even had to call the police. I had already packed my things and was about to call a taxi when my nosy mother-in-law called my husband to warn him I was trying to leave.
My mother-in-law took my child and hid him from me so I couldn't escape. I waited for things to calm down, but the next day I contacted a friend from my old job. With her help, a police car came so I could safely leave that house. My friend gave me a place to stay for a couple of days before I finally returned to my hometown to live with my parents again. I wish I could say everything ended there, but it didn't. Mason had taken intimate photos of me and threatened to post them publicly if I didn't go back to him. He also threatened suicide. I never wanted to return to him because by then I knew exactly what kind of person he was. I no longer trusted him. I blocked him everywhere, but he kept creating new Facebook accounts. He called me from different phone numbers. He even drove all the way to my hometown twice, and my parents had to throw him out. He sent messages through a mutual friend we had from the factory, who was also from my hometown. And on top of that, one of his uncles kept harassing me too. This went on for about 2 years. Honestly, it was horrible. He even created multiple Instagram accounts just to send me messages through the app. That's my whole story. Maybe it's not the scariest one, but believe me, living through something like that is terrifying. And I also want to tell every woman going through something similar, don't be afraid to report it. Don't be afraid to defend yourself. Courage survives only until cowardice decides otherwise. Things escalated so quickly. I don't even know at what point we went from a slightly obsessed boyfriend to I'm going to kidnap you and ruin your life.
Hello, my name is Emma. If you're listening to this, I want you to know that the legal age in the United States is 18, and this story happened when I was still underage. I'm going to tell you what happened to me because I think sharing it might help others become aware and avoid situations like this. When I was 16 years old, in 2018, my parents pulled me out of high school and enrolled me in a cosmetology course. My classes started at 4 p.m. and ended at 8 p.m. Every day I had to walk about 15 minutes from my house to the school, and those 15 minutes became crucial to my daily routine. Like many rebellious teenagers, I was too trusting with the wrong people, and this was one of those cases. At that time, anime Facebook groups were everywhere, and I loved anime, so I joined one. Somehow I met a guy named Tyler. He was 21 years old and lived fairly far away. It took him almost an hour and a half by bus to reach my city. We talked for several months, and I thought he was sweet. I guess it was just young infatuation. He wanted to meet me in person, and I agreed. I thought it would be nice to be friends. The day finally came. He was around 6 feet tall, pale-skinned, very skinny, and had noticeable acne scars. I was only about 5'1" at the time. At the end of our first meeting, he asked me to be his girlfriend. I didn't know what to do, but I said yes. I honestly don't know why. I think I romanticized all the attention he gave me. I explained my boundaries to him. I told him I couldn't tell my parents because they were old-fashioned. To them, if a boyfriend showed up, it meant marriage eventually followed. I was very young. We only saw each other occasionally, maybe once a week. We barely talked much in person. Mostly short conversations and kisses.
After about 3 months, he invited me to his house. His family owned another home in my city, and he told me his mother would be there and that we'd watch a movie together. We bought snacks for the occasion, and when we arrived, he opened the gate and let me in. Once I entered, he closed the gate behind us. That's when I got scared. He looked at me and said, "My mom left." I froze. He locked the door. Then we went inside the house. All I could see outside was the sun setting. The house was completely isolated. No neighbors nearby, no one around. Just an empty couch and several dark rooms. At one point he said, "Let's eat." We opened the snacks and watched a movie on his phone because he had kept my backpack beside him. Then he started kissing me. Honestly, I didn't know what to do. He pulled down his pants and told me, "Get on top of me, I'll buy you a pill afterward." I started crying immediately and told him no, that I didn't want to. He kept insisting, telling me I would enjoy it. I didn't know what to do anymore. I told myself that whatever happened would happen because my parents believed I was safely at school. When things became tense, he got angry. I thought he was going to hit me, but instead he stormed into another room and started crying and punching the wall. I didn't know what to do. I noticed he had left his keys on a table with his belongings. I grabbed them and ran. I was trembling. It was already 8:30 p.m. and completely dark outside. I didn't know where to go. I started walking, and suddenly he appeared beside me, hugged me tightly, and began apologizing. He said he would wait until I was ready. I told him maybe I'd see him another time, but he kept walking beside me all the way home.
After that, I broke up with him, but he continued trying to contact me through every social media platform imaginable. He sent endless messages. Around that time, my mother found out I had skipped class that day, so she took my phone away as punishment. I ended things with him, but he kept insisting. I distanced myself and assumed that was the best thing to do, but eventually he began following me. He waited outside my house. Since he knew my schedule, he waited for me on the route to school and casually walked beside me. To make him go away, I lied and told him I already had a boyfriend. That made him furious. He stopped showing up physically after that, but started sending hateful messages. He told me that if I wasn't in his life, he would kill himself. He said he didn't know how to live without me. Then suddenly he threatened to tell my father everything. I was terrified. I knew my dad would hit me if he found out I had gone alone to a guy's house. Tyler told me we needed to meet in person or he would tell my father everything. That's why I agreed to see him again. He caressed my face and kissed me while I just let him. I was terrified of what he might do. He told me we were getting back together, and I agreed out of fear. I don't know if it was manipulation or coercion anymore.
Months later, I finally trusted a friend from school enough to tell her everything. She immediately told me I needed to leave him and threatened legal action for harassing a minor. So I arranged to meet him in a crowded public area in case he tried to hurt me. It was late afternoon before my classes started. The meeting place was outside a famous church in my city. I arrived first. When he got there, I looked at him and said,
Tyler, I should have done this a long time ago. I don't want to be with you anymore. Your kisses disgust me. The way you hug me disgusts me. I don't want you near me, and I don't want you in my life. If you don't leave me alone, I'll report you for harassing a minor and attempted assault. My hands were freezing cold. He asked what had changed. Then suddenly he started repeating old conversations word for word, things I had told him when we first met, moments when I had been kind to him. The terrifying part was that he wasn't reading anything. He had memorized every single word. I told him I never wanted to see him again. He turned and walked away, and I did the same. For the first time in a long while, I felt free, strong. Then suddenly, I heard him whisper directly into my ear, "You can't get rid of me that easily."
I started crying. He wrapped his arms around me tightly while crying himself. He kept saying he loved me. I felt trapped. For 6 straight minutes, I tried pushing him away, but I couldn't. And the worst part? We were in a crowded avenue full of people. Nobody did anything. I begged for help, and nobody reacted. Finally, a butcher from the shop across the street yelled at him to let me go, saying it was obvious I didn't want this. Tyler finally released me. I walked away, then ran 3 more blocks.
As I was about to cross the street, I looked behind me. He was there. He grabbed my arm, wiped his tears away, and looked at me completely serious. "I always get what I want," he said. I was in shock. I spotted a pharmacy nearby and ran inside. He stayed outside on the sidewalk, staring in through the glass, smiling. The women working there saw me completely breaking down in tears and asked what was happening.
I barely managed to say, "He's stalking me." They hid me in the storage room while they dealt with him outside. Soon I heard him yelling at them from the front counter. The women threatened to call the police if he entered the store. He said he didn't care. The police finally arrived. He told the officer, "Sir, she's my girlfriend. Just let me take her home." And he even showed them a photo of us together. One of the pharmacy workers later told me this detail. The officers eventually took him away because he was acting so unstable. The women comforted me afterward and asked for my family's phone number, but I was terrified my parents would find out everything and pull me out of school. So I lied and told them my school was only 1 block away. One of the women kindly walked me there herself. When we arrived, my teacher became alarmed after hearing what happened. She let me stay there until classes ended and even bought me bread to calm me down. At 8 p.m., she offered to drive me home, but I knew she would tell my parents everything, so I lied again and said I was staying with a classmate. Instead, I went with a friend and told her the entire story. She suggested we get ice cream at the park to distract me. As we approached the park, he was sitting there waiting. The moment he saw me, he started running toward us. I yelled to my friend,
It's him. We ran into a furniture store that was about to close and begged the workers for help, saying a man was following us. Tyler showed up moments later, but one of the employees threatened to call the police again. That's when we noticed he was carrying a large printed banner. On it was the same photo of us he had shown the police earlier. He eventually left. My friend called another friend of hers who arrived on a motorcycle and took us away quickly. I sat between them while we sped through the streets. At one intersection, I saw Tyler crying alone on the sidewalk. My friend covered my eyes and told me not to look. Eventually, I got home. My father saw me arriving late on a motorcycle with a strange guy and immediately questioned me. I lied and said we had almost been robbed. He simply told me to get into the truck because we had errands to run. As I sat in the back of the truck, I noticed Tyler walking on the opposite side of the street. He didn't see me, but I saw him. After that, he kept sending messages for a long time. Eventually, I deleted all my social media accounts. I never heard from him again. But even now, if I see someone with a similar silhouette or appearance, I panic. I think this whole experience traumatized me.
I'm 22 now, and remembering it feels like reliving it all over again. Honestly, I'm still afraid of the guy. He never stopped talking. Message after message after message. He kept playing the victim, talking about how much he was suffering. One of the messages read, "Look, I feel deceived, betrayed. You said you loved me, but after what you did, those words mean nothing. If someone truly loves another person, they wouldn't do something like this. Now I realize that many people have hurt me and made me feel bad throughout my life, but never the way you have. I said I hated you, but I can't accept this. The person I knew would never do something this cruel. The girl I knew was always kind to me." And it just kept going. Complaint after complaint after complaint, playing the victim over and over again. It was so strange. Another message said, "You hurt me more than anyone ever has. I'll never forget it. I don't know why. I don't want to believe that you were the one who wrote that. Maybe it's all a lie. Who knows? I'd even wait for you until you're 18. Good Lord." Then he wrote, "Why did you have to do something so horrible to me? I don't want to accept that this is real." And yes, after the incident where the police almost detained him, he actually mentioned it himself in another message. "The police almost took me away. Even after everything, I still love you. Luckily, I'm free." A very peculiar individual, to say the least.